I'm feeling excited about tonight. We have a strong 30 minutes set aside for this show. I have to leave like right on the hour. But I am just concluding a 3-day fast. I broke it just a few minutes ago with bone broth, and it wasn't a complete 72 hours. It was like 68 hours. But I want to make this more of a habit, more of a lifestyle, because from even just hearing everyone yesterday evening, we talked about fasting and the benefits of that. But as we were talking, it encouraged me that there's so many different ways of fasting, but that too, man, as I've been doing this over the last couple of days, I realized how much it actually forced me into the very thing that I was hoping it would, which was to just orient my mind and orient my entire being towards a particular couple of things I was praying about and just that were on my mind. And so I was grateful for the time and the elimination. We were talking yesterday around what even is fasting, and so much of taking a fast is to eliminate distractions, things that are not helpful or healthy for us. And obviously food is good for you, but to have an unhealthy reliance and dependence. I started waking up at 4 a.m. 2 years ago, and I would go to the gym right away. And, by 5 a.m. I'm thinking about food, and I just would continue to think about food and kind of orient my day and my life around it. And so I wanted to curb that. And so I went on the carnivore diet in, I guess it was July, for about 3 weeks. And I got so much mental freedom. And so there's just so many different, we talked yesterday about having a commitment. Like, what is our commitment that we're going to be fasting from, and why? And the why matters so much. So tonight we're talking about codependency, actually. But I just wanted to share the element on fasting, since I'm just coming off of mine. It was so helpful. And I highly recommend fasting for those of you who are interested or just even want to learn a little bit more. I don't even know. I think you guys will be able to click on this. I sent this link to my family. I watched this video. It was really, really good. And it just talked about the benefits of a 72-hour fast. And then I actually started looking up the benefits of a 5-day fast, because I'm like, man, I'm already 3 days into it. Should I just keep going? I'm not. But I think it's really interesting actually learning from the experts around really the benefits of fasting. Oh, that's the title of the show that I just dropped in. I meant to copy this YouTube link. Let me go ahead and grab that and put it here. The Giggler, hello. Thanks for joining. Rude, hello. Thanks for joining. Kaylee, I'm doing good. I'm grateful. I was actually hitting a wall today. So it was around, this morning. I hadn't eaten since Thursday. And it was, I guess, like 9, 10, 11, where I was like, wow, like this is really a struggle. And then I went to this, I don't normally go to church, but I went to an Orthodox church just to check it out, because I'm really trying to learn more about other opinions on God and religious beliefs, and really uncovering why matters. And I was standing there and I was like, I am going to pass out. And so I just left, and then I went home and put salt in my water, and that helped instantly. It was wild. So anyways, the Giggler, okay, it doesn't seem like you're here for much else other than just kind of being goofy, but I'd love for you to hang around and have a nice conversation with us if you're up for actually communicating. Okay. Did you break the wall? I don't know what you mean by that. I broke my fast, if that's what you're asking. Elsie, good to see you. Willie, thanks for coming. Y'all, tonight we are actually, I just really want to be clear. We're going to, I am going to be putting people in timeout if the comments start getting off color. That's part of the reason why we're just streaming on Christene Marie, so that all of us can be in the same group and all of us can be in the same chat. And, the goal is that we're really able to uplift each other. And that as we're talking tonight, actually about a pretty important topic around codependency, this is a big deal. The way that we interact with each other has so much bearing on our families, on our children, on our businesses, on our, literally every single area of our lives, even financially. If you're working with, honestly, if you're working with a narcissistic boss and you're being codependent, it's going to be so incredibly hard to maintain a healthy relationship in that work environment. So this conversation tonight is important, and I'm excited to dive in with you. Wayne says, clarity, if you have nothing good to say, don't say nothing at all. I love it. Reminds me of the wisdom from Bambi. We all watched that as kids. Joe Ingram. Hello, my friend. Man, it's been a while. Good to see you. Newborn, hello. Thanks for joining. Kanye Men, good to see you. So Marcos asks, what is this channel about? Y'all, what we talk about on this show is the human intelligence, how to cultivate you and me to be the best that we can be. It's not about what are other people doing. It's not about looking to the right and to the left, measuring ourselves against them, but how do we really know who we are, know who we were intended and created to be in the first place, so that we can walk in the fullness of that, so that we can proceed with courage. And, you know, Theodore Roosevelt has this incredible speech called The Man in the Arena. And I might just actually read that because we can never hear it too much. But it's actually called Citizens in the Republic, but the section is most, I guess you could say, commonly known as The Man in the Arena. It is so inspiring. It is about the person who goes into the arena and they're working so hard. They have their faces like marred by dust and grime, and everyone outside the arena, the critics, are pointing and laughing and sneering at them. And y'all, I don't know about you, but man, I want to live alongside those in the arena. And for those of you who are, you know, willing to do the work, this is why we're here. This is why we are joining on the show tonight, is to do the work, to enter the arena together and to encourage each other. And so that's an aspect of why it's important to protect the chat. So I am going to put people on timeout if they're being unkind or rude. The Giggler, hi from North Korea. I'm so glad you're here. Yes, LC says it's not the critic who counts. Yes, I'll read that at some point because that is such an incredible section from the overall speech. Mr. Italy, yes, I am recording live. Good to see you, Robert. This is live. Y'all, I want to talk about codependency is something that every single one of us can kind of err towards. We're born little narcissists as babies. You know, we're crying to get what we want. And then eventually we learn empathy and we learn how to engage with compassion and how to honestly get human to human connection, which is so incredibly important. Each one of us needs connection. But what is where we can kind of err on the other side. So there's the side of narcissism and then the side of codependence, and where we can end up kind of veering off course to be codependent is marked by a couple of things. And the first one that I wanted to talk about tonight, and frankly, I'd love to hear from you guys too, in terms of how you would say this is a character trait of codependence, but really it's when our emotional well-being is predicated on theirs. When, man, my partner walks in the door slams a certain way and I'm like, oh, great. I know that they're in a bad mood. And now I am emotionally dysregulated as a result of them and their emotional state. And y'all, this concept of emotional regulation is really, really important. We've got the IQ, the left side of the brain, and the EQ, the right side of the brain. The EQ is very underdeveloped. We have spent our entire lives focusing on the IQ, but so much of what happens in our homes is predicated on our emotional intelligence and our emotional health. So these conversations around how do we cultivate emotional health? How do I bring stability on an emotional level to my children, to my family, to my partner? Y'all, this is so, so, so important, because when we're looking back on our lives, so often we say, well, I'm this way because of the past, because my parents did X or my parents did Y. And this is our opportunity now as adults to heal, to change, to grow, to strengthen whatever those old patterns of thinking are, put new ones in place so that our kids don't have the same story we did. We are the ones that get to change history, but it's only through intentional doing and intentional learning of how to cultivate the emotional intelligence necessary to be able to do this. So before I even 𝐿𝐴𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲, you don't read comments. Will you time out if I will copy and paste it? Yes, we are going to time out anyone who is inappropriate. So Ryan Cox says technically it's not right brain, left brain. We don't actually have parts of our brain. However, there's like the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere. There are aspects that are effectively, categorically, this is the part of the brain that manages the intellectual IQ side that is more managerial, organizational. And then there's the other part that has more to do with our emotions. And the reason for this is because so much of our emotions are playing into relationships. If you approach your child with an intellectual answer to an emotional problem, you're not going to have that connection. So much of connection is hinged on emotion. And if we want to take it even one step further, Harvard found that the fat Muppet, I'm just going to put you on timeout because we're just not going to be talking like that. But one of the things that Harvard found in a study of consumers is that 95% of consumers are purchasing products in their subconscious, which is where their emotions live. Y'all, we have to be tapping into the emotions for ourselves and also for those around us if we want real connection. Again, whether it's in a business or whether it's your familial setting. So it's really, really important that we're actually doing the work to cultivate emotional intelligence. And it's not even just emotional intelligence, but emotional health, being well effectively. So I just want to jump here in the chat really fast before we keep going. Comic Flick Fusion, I'm so glad to see you. I'm doing well. I just broke my fast like 10 minutes ago, so I'm glad. I'm glad to be off of it. The Jim Fisher, good evening. I'm excited to hear your meaningful comments tonight. EQ, RC, hello from South Carolina. I absolutely love Charleston. I was actually thinking about it today. I was looking at one of the trees and just was thinking about how beautiful, like they're not willows. What are they called in Charleston? Just like the weeping trees. Anyways, they're absolutely stunning. Okay. Let's go back to codependence. So marks of codependency. One, when our emotional well-being is predicated on theirs. How is our ability to self-regulate? And that's even another one is we actually don't have the capability to self-regulate, where we're dependent on other people. So effectively, when we think of codependence, it is dependent externally. And a lot of times we actually learn this in childhood. We actually have a mother who is dependent on us for her emotional stability. I hosted a retreat with, I guess it was 4 or 5 men. Each one, their dads had left them. And they were raised by their mothers, but they also kind of became surrogate husbands for their moms, which was obviously very inappropriate. And it was never the design of the mother, but it was her inappropriately looking to her son for emotional fulfillment. And y'all, we do this. We have inappropriate dynamics with people in our lives, regardless if it's kind of like up the chain or down the chain, our kids, our nieces, nephews, our brothers, sisters, or our parents. And we will place other people and make other people our emotional refuge. Bring me comfort. Tell me I'm worthy. Tell me I'm loved. And we don't do this consciously. So when it comes to emotional intelligence, there's 3 parts, kind of like 3 steps of what constitutes the first half of emotional intelligence. And that is first, the ability to be aware. And then next, the ability to understand and then convey one's own emotions. So that's the first half, be aware, understand, convey. And then the second half is to handle interpersonal relationships with empathy and with wisdom. So we actually cannot really engage in a healthy person-to-person external dynamic if we do not first know who we are. And we're not aware, we don't understand and convey our own emotions. So when we're dysregulated by somebody else's emotions, it just shows how much power they have over us. So really, it is actually one of the most loving things we can do for ourselves and for those in our lives to become emotionally healthy, so that no longer is my day dictated by you, so that you actually can have the freedom to have a bad day if you need to, and I'm going to be fine. I'll actually be able to be and bring some semblance of stability there. And it's really interesting. Ryan Cox, I just saw your question. It's really curious because, you can't get a degree. I have a degree of being intellectually intelligent. You can maybe get a score. Your IQ is X. And it's very similar with EQ. It's developing a human intelligence. It's an understanding and awareness around your own self, and then being able to engage with others accordingly. And so really so much of what it takes to be able to come to this place where you actually have something to offer in relationships is, have I done the work for myself? Have I really, really not just gone and sat in a classroom? Have I experienced the internal transformation for myself intellectually, emotionally? A couple other intelligences we have also are physically. Bessel van der Kolk wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score on how our body retains trauma. And really it's awful in terms of the the veterans that he was analyzing. And they were getting thrown into mental institutions because post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, he's actually the one that coined it. It wasn't around. And people did not understand how our emotions were being locked in our physical body, and our bodies remembered data from the past about what happened. Our emotions do the same thing. So when we encounter something that, putting quotation marks up, triggers us, that means so often that we're actually being thrown in the past, just like how when other people are it's a traumatic response. We get taken back emotionally because we haven't done the work to heal from what happened back then. And so when it comes to this emotional intelligence definition, the very first part is being aware. So let's say, to use that example of the partner comes in, you hear the door shut in a particular way, and you know what to expect. You know what's going to come because you've got data from that time. There's also something about, okay, if I can just first be aware, if I can first take a minute to just be like, oh, this is happening to me. Okay, and then next would be, okay, now let me understand why. I historically, follow the yellow brick road down to the genesis of the moment. How much is that door slamming right here in this present moment actually triggering you? Or is it the past of all the times the door slammed by your dad when you were a kid and he was drunk and angry? Your partner's just in a bad mood. But your dad, he was drunk and angry and people got hurt. So how much of what's happening in the present moment is actually taking us to the past because we haven't dealt with it, we haven't healed from it. And we also haven't proven to ourselves that we can stand up for ourselves in those situations. And so much of with codependency, the reason why is because we're looking for the other person to make our external environment better because we don't know how to. So if we really want to take autonomy and take agency back, we actually need to learn these 3 steps of emotional intelligence: being aware, understanding, conveying what's going on inside of us, and then knowing how to take action externally with empathy and with wisdom. And so let me go ahead and just take a few minutes to jump here in the chat. Google Evil, hello, thanks for joining. Brian Cox, I'm so curious your experience with Christians, because it sounds like you definitely have, talk about a trigger. It sounds like you definitely have a trigger there. Google Evil said, what did you eat? So I just broke my fast. Razor says, I broke my fast like 5 times. I've only had bone broth. I'm going to be going out to dinner tonight, but I wanted to break it with something really, really light, and then I'll be kind of easing into it later. But I was actually just talking with ChatGPT, and it was telling me what I should and shouldn't eat. Brad, Ricky, good evening. Thanks for joining. Growing up in dysfunctional families and toxic environments creates codependency issues. Wayne, 100%. And I read a book around codependency, and it was interesting. So much of codependency actually is stemming from being in relationships where there was alcoholism. So that's something where if you had an alcoholic family member or partner, it's pretty safe to assume that that's going to be almost like an MMO, modus operandi. Like that's how you're going to be relating if you grew up in that environment. Jorge, good evening. It's easy to call someone narcissistic or out of reality, or is easy to call someone narcissistic or out of reality. But let me ask you something. Do we have the moral to do it? Frankly, I think throwing around the term narcissist is really dangerous. There's like a clinical narcissist is very different than what people are talking about today, which is just using that term and applying it freely to people. And so I actually think that there's a great caution in using that term, because it actually means something pretty significant. So I don't actually think that we have a moral obligation to deem someone something that we're not sure about. Even honestly, a therapist called someone very close to me a narcissist, and I feel like once you assign that label and then believe in it, you can't let that person ever change. And even clinical narcissists, I from my understanding, and Ryan, it sounds like you know a lot about this, but from my understanding, people who are clinical narcissists, they actually are missing a piece of their brain that did not develop at a young age that allows for empathy. So it's like, and I heard this example from one of the leading experts in narcissism. And she said, it's like when you're working with a narcissist, they can learn behaviors of empathy. Like, how do I engage externally in an empathetic way? But it's like stretching a rubber band. They're stretching and stretching. They're learning how to do it. But then the second they're triggered, they snap right back. So it's not actually a fundamental heart change. It's more a behavioral change, which is still good. I mean, it's better than nothing. But that was something that I thought was very profound as I was studying narcissism and codependence, because codependence was how I operated for, 20 years. So, Robert asked if I had a degree or something. And, it's almost like when you got a degree from life experience in so many ways. So no, there is no degree in codependence, but you can do obviously a lot of good study around these topics. And what a blessing that is, to learn how to heal yourself. Robert Smith, good evening. Thanks for joining. I'm doing well. Just scrolling down. The home you were raised is where the patterns develop. It's so true, Greg. Patterns are predictable. If your spirit hasn't made new through the new birth, you're not a complete person. Y'all, it's so interesting. I'm so glad you brought that up, Greg, around patterns. What were the patterns in your childhood, and are they showing up in your family today? Are they showing up in your life today? And honestly, from what I've observed in many folks and in myself, if I have not consciously identified the patterns from the past, they will likely be my autopilot. They will likely be the default behavior. Now, again, you can actually be repulsed by certain behaviors from your childhood. You could love certain behaviors from your childhood that was modeled for you or that you exhibited, and then now you're conscious of them. But a lot of times there's a subconscious element to the patterns that we hold, either whether it's behavior patterns or thought patterns that guide our lives in a very subconscious way. So the goal is to bring it to consciousness. It's like taking these thoughts, taking the patterns out and examining them. Like, is this who I want to be? Is this in alignment with actually how I'm going to get to the next trajectory of, the next level for my life? Am I on the right trajectory? Just looking back here in the chat. Ryan, I completely agree. Functioning in a therapist role without a license. I agree. I think you're absolutely right. And I have never, ever claimed to be a therapist, nor do I want to. I think every single one of us has the ability to learn how to cultivate the emotional intelligence for ourselves that can really help us heal, to really help us. It's like we get to heal on our own. Now, that does not mean I had a therapy appointment yesterday. I totally 911 my therapist sometimes. And I'm so grateful to have somebody that will challenge me and hold up a mirror for me, even just to talk to. The reason why we have these retreats and have these conversations is so that we learn how to do this for ourselves, so that we learn to ask the hard questions, so that we learn to look in the mirror in general. I'm finishing up my book right now, and it's not therapeutic. It's not based on deep philosophy. It's just my experience. And so whoever is looking for experiential based learning, that's why we're here, is to have me share, have you share. I would love to learn from you. I've learned so much from these conversations. So I would, for every single person listening, this is what we're learning from each other's experience. Yes, there's going to be textbook knowledge, 100%, but I actually care more about someone's real experience, just like how I care more about God revealing something to me, spiritual revelation, than me reading something from a book or me listening to a pastor or priest. I want to live a visceral life. There's my favorite line in a song. I was reminded of it when a dear friend of mine passed away. There's this line that says, I want to live this one wild life. I want to rip it apart. And so I am committed to living experientially rather than being a student of somebody else. I want to be a student of life, be a student of God, and yes, be a student of other people, 100%. Hence why I said I want to learn from y'all. But guys, there is something about learning these things for ourselves, learning to train our mind, train our ear. Again, not be codependent. Don't be codependent. Are you internally sourced? Or are we so addicted to our phones and to podcasts, to books, that we don't know how to think for ourselves? So yes, Ryan, I think you're bringing up such a good point. And I think that each one of us actually has the ability to heal on our own. And I think each one of us receives revelation and knowledge from the experiences that they go through that has benefit to the rest of the world. And so those are the kind of conversations we have here. I bring guests on. And so for all of those reasons, we're going to keep moving forward. Greg says patterns are predictable. So true. EQRC says, why can't we use all of our minds? I never understood why we only use half the brain. It's like that movie Lucy. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that movie. So good. Is that the same one with oh gosh, is that Justin Timberlake? I think, yeah, they're in the same movie, and it's Amanda Seyfried. But what's the one? No, I'm thinking of this other one too, where, oh gosh, he was in The Star Is Born, Bradley Cooper, where he takes like a pill and all of a sudden he can access things he learned in 3rd grade. Dude. Oh my gosh. So fascinating. Greg says, what was the purpose of your fast? I had a couple of things specifically that I was actually really wanting to be kind of orienting my mind and like all of me around, just to really be thinking about it and getting ideas. I actually had some cool breakthroughs too. There's something around the elimination of distraction in any regard. Fasting isn't just food, but elimination for the purpose of being focused and being oriented, putting all of my life source into these topics, and then a breakthrough came, which was cool. And I'm hoping for more. So I'm going to be doing this more often. I want to do this on like a monthly basis. And I was doing a bit of study too on the cell regeneration side of things, which was really cool. So, okay, just scrolling down here. Ruben, good to see you. Just remember, we're all conscientiousness. We're all conscientiousness experiencing itself. That's why it's good to treat one another how we want to be treated. I love that. And honestly, that golden rule, right? Treat each other how we want to be treated. We started playing trivia on Wednesdays, which has been so much fun. And that's been one of the things that I've been paying attention to in terms of that golden rule. Are we actually treating people the way that we want to be treated? Here is a YouTube video. I'm just dropping it in the chat. This is what I watched today, actually. Senator V, hello. Good to see you. Caleb, good to see you. Thanks for joining, guys. I watched this today, and it was just really good on some of kind of the background on fasting, and honestly, the benefits of, he goes through like intermittent fasting, the benefits of intermittent fasting. I think he went up to 18 hours was where he started talking about the benefits, and then he went to 24 to 48 hours. He gave kind of like that window lumped together, and then talking about 72 hours. And then he had another video on 5-day fasting. So I'm like, oof, we'll see if I ever get to that. All right, the last thing I want to talk about in terms of emotional intelligence, and then I actually do need to hop off here. Y'all, do we even know what our experience is first? Or are we constantly sitting in someone else's experience? And I felt this so much when I was when I've been in close relationships in my 20s. You know, I would only sit in the other person's experience. And because of a narrative that I adopted when I was 4 or 5 years old, I really have thought since I was a kid, it's my responsibility to keep everyone safe and happy. Even my parents, like for whatever reason, well, I know why. I had my grandmother had this word from God that I was to be like Mother Teresa. And that was a lot of weight for a little 4 or 5-year-old to carry. Like, Mother Teresa's perfect. She is the most altruistic. She's the most wonderful. And there's only one Mother Teresa. So fundamentally at, 4 or 5 years old, it was, hey, be like this person. Here's a model for you. And in so doing, I've got 5 siblings. And so there was a lot of people to take care of. And here's the thing. I actually had success doing that. I had success in terms of I won relationally when I was kind and loving and generous and compassionate and caring for everybody else. And so that's what we want, right? We want connection, but it was human connection at the price of me being a non-person. So when we're trying to think of how do I break free from being codependent, this aspect of really, truly doing the work to know who you are, it's a scary thing because for me, my biggest question when I started moving away from codependence was, will I still be loved? Will I still have connection with people? And it felt like the ultimate risk to start showing up authentically. And I still have, a lot of those tendencies and dispositions towards love and compassion, etc. So many people do, but it was predicated in let me be who you want me to be rather than it's actually coming from a really genuine place, and not even genuine, but like authentically me. So I would try to not laugh too loud, and I would try not to be too much in the spotlight because I didn't want other people to feel bad. It was like I just dimmed me down and then tended to this other part of me that was all about everybody else. So if we want to break free from codependence, one of the best and most important things we can do is ask, what was my experience in whatever happened? Even just, how did I feel? What was my experience at dinner last night? What did I think about that comment that was made? Somebody said this to me a couple years ago. They were like, I'm so good at conversations. Everybody loves talking to me because I'm such a good listener and so good at asking questions. But then the second they ask me a question, I have no idea what the answer is because they haven't done much work to cultivate their own mind and emotion around specific topics. So it takes work to come to know who we are. And it's actually sometimes a cop-out to live in codependent relationships because now when we've got a bad day, we just get to blame everybody else. Oh, if they had only done this, if they had only not had been in a bad mood themselves, I would be in a good mood. And so it's so easy when we are living and operating as a codependent, we are actually also operating as a victim in our own life because we're effectively blaming everybody else for all the reasons why life is good and why it's bad. So there's a whole bunch more conversations we could have around codependence, but I need to go. I have to go eat my first real meal since Thursday. Woohoo. Y'all, thank you so much for joining tonight. Greg, thanks so much for hanging out tonight. Reluctant gamer. We don't talk like that. So please come back, but we just don't talk in that manner. Caleb, man, you have no idea what a negative person can do to you. It is so wildly true. My gosh. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. We're going to be live again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. We'll be hanging out, going through a daily Course in Miracles. So